Hello and welcome. Aquarister here, coming to you with another video. And today we are going to be talking about level 60. What do we do? There are a lot of new players and returning players coming back to New World, and there have been since the Brimstone update. And a lot of people are saying, once I hit 60, well, now what? What's next? I've leveled up. I ground out the levels to get to 60, and now what? So today we're going to go over some of the things that once you hit level 60, you can start farming, you can start PvEing, PvP. There's a lot of options once you hit 60. It's a little overwhelming sometimes, so we're going to lay out some of the kind of daily options that you can do, as well as some ways that you can level up your gear and all of that. So let's jump into it and start taking a look at your expertise, aka gear score. All right, so when you open up your inventory, you probably have noticed in the bottom left-hand corner, it'll say average expertise and your gear score. You can hover over the expertise. It does tell you the max, how you can get it. It's pretty cool, but again, something where if you don't hover over that, it's actually not going to tell you. So looking at this, it actually does tell us how we can get our expertise bumps, with a max being 625. The first thing is the elite POIs and expeditions. Expeditions are huge, really good way of getting your expertise up, and we will go through the different dungeons so you have an idea of which ones you are able to farm. The next way to get some gear score or expertise is by crafting. If you do craft a 600 gear score item, your expertise actually does get a bump up in that particular item. And when you craft it, you get to keep that 600 gear score. It doesn't scale it down. So you do get to keep that. Another way is gypsum casts, which we will go over gypsums as well a little bit later, and then item upgrade. So once you hit 600 expertise, that's when you can use umbral shards to level up your gear past 600, up to 625. So what's going to happen is when you are 60, you are slightly bottlenecked, even though you can equip any of the items, any of the weapons, because you are a high enough level, your gear score actually will scale down. So let's say you are at 500 gear score at the very start, and you buy a 600 gear score item. It will actually take the difference between the 500 and 600 and scale that 600 item down. But once you actually hit 600 gear score in that item, it now is available as a 600 gear score, and you can level it up to 625 using umbral shards. So really good way for you to just keep track of some of that. Usually when it comes to leveling up my gear, I do try to focus my main weapons, my main armor. Obviously armor is a 625 or 600 in general is good because armor translates across all builds, as well as jewelry. So usually it's like jewelry, armor, and then your main weapons. That's what you'll be focusing on getting your gear score higher in, your expertise level. That will be kind of the main focus. So that's kind of what we're looking at very start for gear score. So gear score is very important. It will allow you to move further on the game. You will get higher stats on your gear. Once you hit 600 legendary items, you're getting 3 perks, like 3 perks like this instead of 2 perks like this purple one. So there is a lot of benefit to getting the legendary gear, because that extra perk can make a really big difference, especially when you have 5 of them. That's like 5 extra perks if you have all gold instead of purple. So it does make a difference. And like I said, with your gear score, it will scale it down, but don't be worried. Once you hit that gear score of that item, it will scale it back up to it. So you won't lose it. You won't lose the gear score in a particular item. You will still be good to go with that. So that's kind of just a general look over of the expertise system. So a lot of it is just getting your gear score up. That is when you first hit 60, that's usually the first thing you want to do, is just get your gear score up so you are able to equip and level up any of the gear that you get past that. Next, since we talked about gypsums a little bit, let's just briefly go over them, and I'll meet you over at the Gypsum Kiln. All right, we are here at the brand new Gypsum Kiln in Brimstone Sands. If you are curious, this is the Gypsum Kiln in Brimstone. They just added it with the Winter Convergence Festival. And this is the symbol that you see in any of the settlements that have them. So the Gypsum Kiln, we have one in Brimstone, Great Cleave, Shattered, I believe Eden Grove should have one. I don't go there too often for it, but yep. Eden Grove. So there's quite a few, Reekwater, Ebon Scale. There's quite a few gypsum kilns, but today we're just going to be at the Brimstone one. So you can kind of hop around if you don't happen to have like a city or a settlement unlocked quite yet, like Brimstone. Then you can go to Reekwater or any of the other places that have them. So, looking at the Gypsum Kiln, let's go into it here. You have these different gypsum orbs, right? So each orb allows us to create, or each of the gypsums allows us to create the orbs. So right here, I will make 2 of the gypsum orbs using the sapphire gypsums. We'll make 1 emerald, like that, and we'll do our diamonds as well. So there are various ways of getting gypsums. I don't currently have a video out on gypsums, but maybe I'll try to get one that focuses in on it so you guys can really kind of go through a checklist of various gypsums that you can farm each day, because there are quite a few. There are the infused orbs as well. I don't usually recommend going with these because the fragments from breaking down gear are usually pretty good. But we're not going to go over that right now. We're just doing an overview of gypsums and why you're going to want to do them. Looking down here, I'm going to just buy 1 for now. So we have 1 gypsum cast. Now, when you are below 600 gear score, when you open these gypsum casts, it will actually give you an expertise bump. Like, I'm maxed out on all of mine. I'm at 600 or more on all of my weapons, and so I don't get any more bumps. But once you hit 600 gear score in an item, you will receive umbral shards. And the most you can receive from it is 400. That is if you have 625 gear score in that item, then you will receive 400 shards. Anything below 625, you just get a lower amount of umbral shards. But it is a good way to farm up a few umbral shards in order to level up your gear past 600. Ideally, as you level up that gear past 600, you're going to get more umbral shards each and every day from your gypsums. So the gypsums is a really nice kind of daily system, both to get expertise bumps, but also to get umbral shards down the road. It's not something that you have to do, but it will increase the speed that you are leveling up your gear at. So that is one way that we can get our expertise level up, as well as getting gypsums and stuff down the road. Let's take a look, though, at a couple other ways that we can maybe get some expertise bumps, and maybe where the best places to get them are. One of the other things that you can definitely do once you hit 60 is chest runs. Now, the various elite areas will have chest runs. Some groups will do what they call a world tour, where they do all the different elite zones, and they'll loop through each individual one. I don't always like to do that because that can take 3-4 hours sometimes, depending on the group and how quick everything's going. But if you ever see people Xing up for chest runs, you know, for Imperial in Ebon Scale or Helio or any of these, you know, Shatter Mountain, if you see people Xing up for that type of stuff, definitely it helps to hop into some of those if you don't have a group to run the elite areas with. The elite zones, the higher level elite zones, we'll all say recommended level 60 or higher or whatever. But those elite chests and a lot of the chests in general can give you expertise bumps as well as named gear from those dropped creatures. So chest runs, originally chest runs were like the #1 way to get your expertise up because we didn't really have that many options, but they have since expanded that and allowed us to get our gear score a bit quicker and a bit faster. So doing chest runs, I still do chest runs even though I don't need the expertise. I do it for the loot. It's really easy loot. I don't always go with the big groups, but sometimes I do, and it makes just for really easy loot as long as like people are killing stuff and helping each other out. But chest runs, fantastic way for loot as well as expertise. So definitely do recommend hopping into some if you see people Xing up for them. All right, so looking at the map here, we have a few different expeditions that we can look at. Now, on your way to level 60, you might have done Amarine or Starstone, maybe even Depths or Dynasty. Now, you might have done those expeditions, and if you have, that's great. There's decent loot from them. But now that you're 60, you are going to want to start farming some of the higher tier loot, which a lot of that can come from dungeons. So looking at probably what I would say the two easiest starter dungeons for level 60s, it's going to be Reekwater. We're looking at the Lazarus Instrumentality. This is an ancient dungeon, so you want to wear ancient gear if you have it. For a regular dungeon, might not need to worry as much, but if you are undergeared, the ward gear does help you out. So Lazarus is a really, really straightforward dungeon. There's a lot of 60s out there who have run it. Most of us have run it who have been playing the game for a while. So I'm sure you could find some help running it with you, but it's a really good entry level expedition. The other one being Garden of Genesis. Genesis is a really, really fun dungeon. It's a little bit more involved than Lazarus, I would say. And I will say this. If you're looking at expertise bumps specifically, and that's what you're going for, which a lot of people are as a 60 especially, Garden of Genesis typically is going to drop you more loot, meaning more chances at expertise bumps. Compared to Lazarus. Lazarus is still good. There's a lot of good drops from Laz, so I do highly recommend still running it. But Genesis, from what I've found, as far as ease of running and the amount of loot you get, Garden of Genesis is fantastic. It's not an overly difficult dungeon. You can burn through it really quickly, get a lot of loot, get a lot of expertise bumps, and just keep spamming them if you want. Now, if you're getting bored of Lazarus, Genesis, anything like that, you do have multiple other 60 plus dungeons. We've got Tempest Heart. Tempest Heart is a bit harder, but still a very, very fun dungeon. A little bit longer a one, but the loot is fantastic out of there. So I really like to get random roll, like gauntlets or any gear from there. I usually enjoy getting. So you have Tempest. You also have Barnacles and Black Powder, which is a little bit newer of a dungeon. And that's down in Cutlass Keys. This is a really fun dungeon. It's all lost damage, so prepare according to that. But really, really fun dungeon. A little bit different experience, different kind of feel and vibe to it. So do recommend that one, and pretty good loot from it. And then the newest dungeon that's non-mutated, I should say, is Ennead. So the Ennead came out with Brimstone Sands, and it is a very, very fun dungeon. It is a bit more difficult, a little bit heavier favor into the range DPS side of things, but nonetheless still a really, really fun dungeon. But it is going to be a bit harder than the other ones, so just be warned. It might be a little bit trickier, but very, very fun and really, really good loot there. So another really good one to run. Now, those are going to be all of the regular dungeons, the non-mutated. Once you hit 60 and once you hit specifically 600 gear score, that's when you're going to start looking at mutated dungeons. And we do have a new one. So Starstone just received a mutation where it's Starstone and Amrine mashed up. And looking at this, you can see all the mutations here. Each mutation, it kind of rotates through, so you'll have some being harder or easier. And we're not going to go too deep into these mutations, but just so you have an idea, once you hit 600 gear score, as you can see, they recommend a minimum gear score of 602. They do recommend that for a reason, because if you are too undergeared, you will notice a difference. You will take significantly more damage, do less damage. But this is something where it's more of the end game. Once you're at 60, once you've gotten your expertise level up, then the mutateds come in. And mutated dungeons are very, very fun. It does shake things up a bit and bring in a little extra difficulty to it, or quite a bit extra difficulty when you're new to it. So that's kind of the whole deal with expeditions. I always recommend a new 60 to spam as many expeditions as they're willing to run, because the gear score bumps from it are just insane. Like I said, if you're willing to just sit and grind one dungeon, Garden of Genesis, that's what I take all of our lower gear score people through, or anyone that I've been helping out with gear score. Try to take them through Garden of Genesis, and we just spam it, and we'll run a whole bunch of times, and they get bumps of expertise like crazy. So really, really good way to go about it, using expeditions. So next, let's talk actually a little bit about Brimstone. Okay, so Brimstone Sands. It is the newest territory. We did receive it with the Brimstone Sands update. And I will say it was a fantastic addition to the map. A lot of people have been loving it. There's tons of loot, tons of quests, named enemies, dungeon, all that fun stuff. It is a really, really good territory. Now, you have to be 60 in order to go to this territory, so that's why we're going to include this. In order to unlock Brimstone, though, you're actually going to have to travel to Shattered Mountain, and there is going to be a quest here. And that quest is going to be called Strider of the Sands. And that quest will allow you to make this coating that essentially protects your body against the harsh sands of Brimstone. And so once you complete that quest, you'll turn it in, and then you'll actually go down here, and you will have access to Brimstone. Brimstone Sands is, like I said, it's a really, really nice territory, especially for loot. A newer player, you can get some levels, all sorts of good stuff. And there's kind of loot and NPCs just everywhere, so you can kind of just wander and explore, and you'll run into something. But Brimstone for level 60s is fantastic. I do recommend going there, spending a good amount of time there trying to get loot, resources. They just did a really good job with it. But there are a lot of named items and named creatures, meaning special loot that has a predetermined perk pool. Or I shouldn't even say pool, it just has predetermined perks. And so at 5, usually you'll pull it at 590, it'll have 2 perks. Once you leveled up to 600, you end up getting a third, and the named items do glow, so it's a very specific look. It pops out, you'll notice it. So Brimstone, really, really good to get into. Once you get to Brimstone, you want to continue through main story quest, and then you're going to have a Heartrune quest. I believe it pops up over here. And what you'll do is you'll do that quest, and that will actually unlock your Heartrune slot. Your Heartrune goes right here. Default is G for the button for it. And what it is, it's essentially an ultimate ability that you can build up. You'll first receive a minor Heartrune, and then through stone cutting, you actually craft up to the higher tiers. Once you hit the top tier like this, the legendary one, it will just go to 625. You don't have to level it from 600 to 625. It just automatically is 625 when you craft it. But you have to level it up from the bottom up. So from minor, major, and then the legendary. But Heartrunes are huge right now. It's a whole bunch of extra DPS or debuffs or whatever you end up going, whichever one you go with. It's a really, really good thing to have as a 60. So first thing I would say is get to Brimstone and work towards getting that Heartrune quest, because even if you don't have your stone cutting, you can still use the minor Heartrunes, and it is a little extra DPS, a little extra damage and stuff. Or extra, just CC or whatever you're needing. So the Heartrune quest, I do highly recommend pushing for because the Heartrunes are really, really fantastic. And then as you do the other dungeons, each dungeon has a Heartrune attached to it. So as you're doing the higher tier, I should say the 60 plus dungeons have Heartrunes attached to them. So as you are doing them, you will actually receive minor Heartrunes from defeating certain bosses within those dungeons. The only one, now that I think about it, that's brand new that you can actually get without having to run a 60 dungeon is the new Bile Bomb Heartrune. That you can actually get from Amrine just running regular, I believe. I don't know if they'll change that or not. But I believe you can run just regular Amrine and kill Simon Gray, and he will drop it for you. I haven't done it myself yet, but that is what I've heard others are doing. Seems to be a pretty quick and easy way to get it done. But those are Heartrunes. That's Brimstone. I really would push you to spend a lot of time in Brimstone if you're a new 60. You're going to get a lot of good gear. You're going to be able to get money, all that stuff. It really does. It's a really good territory. It is going to be a little bit more challenging if you're a fresh 60, just because the enemy types are a little bit higher there. But in general, I think you'll be just fine as long as you don't pull too many enemies or do too crazy of pulls there. But yeah, so Heartrunes, Brimstone, they go hand in hand because you have to do the Brimstone quest in order to unlock the Heartrune. So I would highly recommend getting to that whenever you're able to. And then let's see. The next thing too is OPR. OPR is it's a PvP game mode where it's a 20 versus 20. Hold up here. The first team to reach a score of 1,000 wins. There's 3 different outposts. You have to capture them. I don't play as much OPR as I used to. Every so often on stream, though, you'll catch me playing a little bit. So definitely stop by a stream if you would like to see some OPR, a little bit of PvP for that. But it is a really good way where you can actually get loot. You can get expertise bumps from the caches that drop from OPR. And then you can also get gypsums. You can get 2 ruby gypsums a day from playing OPR. So even if you're not huge into PvP, but you want to farm up your gypsums and farm up a little extra loot, just run 2 OPRs, do your best, see how you do, and then you don't have to do them anymore. And you get your gypsums, some loot, some faction rep, all that fun stuff. So OPR is actually a really good way of getting loot and progressing, because you also, let's say you win a match, or even if you lose, you still get some. But when you win a match of OPR for your PvP track, you actually get quite a bit of XP. And if you're into PvP, the PvP track is really, really nice because you can get some really good specific PvP gear or PvP mods, like crafting mods. And even if you're not into PvP, it's still worth doing because you can actually get some pretty decent stuff out of it, including emotes. You can get emotes. You can get gold, you can get faction tokens, you can get all sorts of stuff. So again, even if you're not super into PvP, working on your track here and there might still be worth it for you from a loot standpoint. But yeah, so OPR, you have to be 60 in order to play it. So see how it goes. But if you're not really into PvP, then OPR won't really apply to you at all. But it is a fun game mode. I do push people to at least try it, see if you like it. It's all up to you if you want to queue for it or not. And then let's talk about the last thing that we will go over for level 60s. As you can see, the last thing we will be talking about is houses. Now, houses are very, very important depending on what you're doing in the game. For one, having one house, I would say, is pretty essential because you do get a free recall that you can also pay to have the recall done on. And then you also get extra storage. The extra storage is really nice if you are a hoarder like myself. You are going to be sitting on a lot of extra resources that you don't know what you're going to do with, but you might use it one day. So you need to make sure you have the extra storage for it. But the other thing is you actually get the buffs from each house. So let's take a look at our buffs here. So first off, we'll look at trophy buffs. I have a house in Everfall, Ebonscale, and Brimstone. They're all tier 4 houses. So for each tier of house, you can actually add 1 extra storage box. So for me, being a hoarder like I am, having the availability of 4 extra storage boxes is huge because I still fill some of them. But what you do get is you can apply trophies. So each house can have 5 trophies. You can't have 2 of the same trophy in the same house, like up on the wall at the same time. But you can have 5 at once. So right now I was crafting some engineering stuff yesterday. So I have my engineering trophies up, which if you are a crafter and you want to craft the highest gear score possible, you need 3 houses and all the top tier trophies. So if you are a crafter, or even if you're a PvEer especially, I do recommend the houses, because like houses for PvE are huge, not only for crafting, but you also get the combat trophies. I mean, it's kind of cool because they changed the description. I don't remember when they changed it, but now it tells you that it grants a 4% bonus to damage when fighting against ancients and skeletal creations. So you get damage bonuses for having the combat trophies up. So that's why I always make sure that like I have those up, because even in open world, it's still going to help you, not just for dungeons and stuff. But I try to keep most of them up, or the most common areas that I'm in. So ancient, corrupt, and angry earth. I do run into lost every so often, but I don't always run the trophies because it's not as often that I am. But having 3 houses allows you to have, even at the basic trophy level, that's still a 12% buff in damage against that enemy type. So that's a pretty big buff. And then obviously once you hit major, it's even bigger yet. But yeah, having three houses is great because you get the trophy buffs. You get the trophy buffs, 3 recalls, plus extra storage. And once you're 60, you more than likely will be hoarding a lot of stuff, again, if you're like me, or you can sell everything. But if you are a hoarder like me, having 3 houses, especially 3 tier 4 houses, is fantastic. And since I'm a crafter, I'm 200 and everything for crafting. So having 3 houses for trophies is also really, really. So houses, again, I really do push them. The last thing with the house that is very, very important and why I recommend at least having one is the town project bonuses. So each town will have town projects, as you might have seen. And with those projects, once they're completed and activated, then you get various buffs. The only way you get that buff, though, is if you own a house in that territory. Make sure that you are getting in a city that's going to allow you to have a Hale and Hearty, because it's an extra 10% HP. Like, it's an extra buff to your HP for 3 days. It's crazy, you know? So I do recommend it. Trying to get a house, a lot of times people will go with Everfall or Windsward, because typically in the past those have been the busiest territories. So usually they keep up with the buffs the best. Ebonscale is also a really good one. And once you're 60, Brimstone, at least on our server, has kept up pretty good with their town projects. So yeah, that's kind of the deal with houses. Your first house that you purchase is, I think they changed it. So now it's, don't quote me on this, but I think your first house is a flat rate. And then after that, it changes. In the past, it was half, but I'm not sure. I haven't bought a new house in a long time. My character's been around since day one. I haven't been a first-time purchaser of a house, but my first one was half off. I just thought I saw in the patch notes that they changed some of that for the cost of it. But you can sell your house. You can actually sell it and get like half your money back, half of whatever you paid. So you won't get like half of the value, you'll get half of what you paid for it. But yeah, so that's the deal with houses. I do recommend at least one for the recall and the extra storage and trophies. If you can get all 3, perfect. Then you're doing a little extra damage, you're getting a little extra loot, you're getting a whole bunch of extra stuff. So definitely do recommend houses. All right, well, now that you're 60, hopefully you have a few ideas of what you can start working towards. I know a lot of people say, you know, once you hit 60, the whole game opens up. You can really do anything and everything in the game, and it really is true. It's just, it's a little overwhelming with the amount of things that there are to do now, and some people don't know what direction to go, what order to do things in. You know, there's not really any correct order. For myself, I like to unlock, you know, I like to unlock the new territory, the shrines to travel around, the Heartrunes. I want to be able to play with everything within the game. And so that's where I first tried to explore things, tried to make it so I can get around the map a lot easier and just have fun exploring. But really, once you're 60, it's up to you. Whatever you want to do in the game, you can now do. Whether that's dungeons or, you know, loot farming or anything like that, you have the option to go out and do that. So congratulations on hitting 60. I hope your experience in the game goes fantastic. If you've been 60 for a bit and just kind of checking out the video, then welcome. If you did like the video, please drop it a like, drop a sub if you do want to stop by and check out another video. And also, I do stream throughout the week on Twitch, so I would love it if you'd stop by and say hi. Let me know you checked out which video, and then we can have a chat. I do like to talk about the videos. I like to talk about builds, help people out on stream live. I just have a lot easier way of doing that when I can talk to you directly. So I'd love for you to swing by a stream sometime. Otherwise, for today, that is going to do it for me. So until next time, I will see you later.